Greater Sydney's population is set to grow by 1.4 million people in the next 20 years. But where are they all going to live?
Yeah, so recently we did an episode on regional New South Wales. Now it's more so metro, Sydney, Newcastle, some other surrounding suburbs. And like Brad said, more specifics around the population growth in each of those locations.
The population in Greater Sydney area is tipped to go from 4.9 million up to 6.3 million by 2041, so that's a 28% increase. So it is quite a lot. Newcastle, Hunter area, and also the Illawarra areas are tipped to have a lot of growth. For obvious reasons, it's within sort of 2 hours of Sydney. So
you can still enter the Maitland market and Cessnock market for $700K.
Exactly.
It's affordable price points.
So what we're going to be running through today is the state government, so New South Wales government's population growth estimates for, was it 2041?
2041, yeah.
2041. So like anything in property investment, population growth is one of the drivers. So to have an area that's going to grow, most of the time you're going to need population growth as one of the drivers in that area. So what we're going to be looking at specifically today is what areas in Greater Sydney and also Newcastle, Illawarra areas are tipped to have the most growth. And obviously on the back of that, you should be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, so there are some handy tools. We haven't put it in here, but I will mention them to find where the populations are moving in the specific suburbs within these locations that we've identified.
So as a whole, the population in Greater Sydney area is tipped to go from 4.9 million up to 6.3 million by 2041. So that's a 28% increase. So it is quite a lot. And 63% of all New South Wales residents will live in the Greater Sydney area.
It's not surprising.
So the main things for that is young families, infrastructure, housing supply, and some of the fastest growing local areas is Camden by 3.5%, Woolloondilly 3.3%, and the Hills District, which is 2.7%.
I mean, Camden and Woolloondilly are basically right next to each other. So, you know, it is just that southern Western Sydney growth corridor right near that Sydney Airport expansion, or the new Western Sydney Airport, I should say. But for Woolloondilly and Camden at 3.5 and 3.3%, that's 3 times the state average. Because you've got 28% increase over that period. But I believe that report was from 2024. And I think it was a state average of 1.1% increase.
So beyond Sydney, so some of those areas that are outside, I don't know why they've been bundled into metro. I guess they're a regional metro. But Greater Newcastle area, Central Coast and Illawarra, Shoalhaven areas are projected to grow by 27%. So from 1.4 mil to 1.8 mil by 2041. Again, it's younger demographics that are driving the growth in these areas due to more affordable housing and proximity to employment and education. So I know that both Illawarra and Newcastle have really good universities and it really attracts.
Well, Newcastle University makes up 5.5% of Newcastle's gross regional product. So it is a massive contributor to that local economy. But it's essentially a 2-hour radius of Sydney.
Which is nuts. So some of the standouts out of those obviously is the Shoalhaven Illawarra area, which is 36% growth. Which is huge. Newcastle and Lower Hunter is tipped to go 27%. And Central Coast 17%.
So Central Coast a little bit less. Illawarra Shoalhaven, there is a lot more available land down there, but it is more high density that they're doing in a lot of those areas. Greater Newcastle, Lower Hunter, I mean, there is a lot more land, obviously, when you move out to Lower Hunter. But obviously all of those suburbs are going to have different property makeups.
So what we're going to be going through now is some of the actual suburbs in these areas that are tipped to get some epic growth, essentially. So first we'll look at the Hunter region. Maitland is tipped to go up by 49%.
So with Newcastle, Lake and Lower Hunter, that's obviously Newcastle out to probably Singleton. They potentially put into this. But Maitland to make up 49% of that growth. And I mean, you can't just sit there and say that's the benchmark and go and buy Maitland.
No.
Because obviously Maitland, you've got Chisholm, Aberglasslyn, Rutherford, all of those suburbs. But, obviously in the Newcastle market, you're going to have areas that not only, they don't have necessarily population growth because they're not developing any more products. Doesn't mean that people don't want to live in those suburbs. Like Merriweather, for example, the only way that they can increase that supply is increased density. So that's not going to have population growth unless zoning laws change. But people still want to live there, and it's still going to have demand for that market.
Yeah, and the population growth, as you said, in that area, there's a lot of land out there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of opportunity to create the bigger housing estates, and you're not going to get that in a true metro area within a city. So Maitland up 49%. That's still a lot of growth, even with some development out there. I think that's still one to keep an eye on. Cessnock up by 40%.
Yeah.
Again, Cessnock is quite a lot of land, so a lot of opportunity to build out there.
One thing to note, and I believe we listed this in the last regional episode, a lot of people are downsizing or moving out of the sort of hinterland and bigger land parcels and moving closer to the city. So although Cessnock has a lot of surrounding land, we will see, like Huntlee's a good example of a new estate that's being developed. We will see increased density within these pockets, and low to medium rise housing policy changes recently. There is a 22-metre building height for Cessnock City Centre.
Yeah.
So we do see people still want to be living close to town.
Yeah.
And not living on big farms and stuff.
So getting an established house and an established area within these areas is going to do a lot better than getting a block in a housing estate going forward. So the next one is Illawarra, Shoalhaven area. So Shellharbour is up by 43% and Shoalhaven up by 40%.
Yeah.
So still really good, strong growth areas. I don't particularly know those areas much myself. Obviously living in Newcastle, I know the other areas, but it's promising signs in those regional metro areas. So obviously the increased demand does, increase prices, or it can do, but again, you've got to look at how easy it is to increase the supply in those areas as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's not just
one metric.
We've just, there's going to be a lot of population growth, broadly speaking, for Sydney, Newcastle, Central Coast, Illawarra, Maitland, Cessnock. But then again, like I said, and the free tool that I mentioned before is platforms like Informed Decisions. If you type in Newcastle population forecast, probably the first thing that comes up is Informed Decisions. You can open that up and it's got a really good profile of demographics and people who make up those areas. And Newcastle, for example, you can see the population forecast for every single suburb throughout Newcastle. So, Wickham, for example, will have, a lot of increase because there's got increased density in houses in that area, or increased density for units. Which again, you can just say as a baseline, it's the highest population growth. Wickham will probably want to be one of the most inferior suburbs for Newcastle because it's got matching supply.
Yeah.
So
I guess some of the key takeaways for that, if you are looking in the greater Sydney area, it was the Camden, sort of that area through there.
The whole southwestern Sydney corridor.
All through that area.
Again, you've got to try and pick that property that's going to cater to the biggest audience and try and forecast what those incomes are going to be to try and sustain those debt levels long term. Because, I mean, it's virgin land out there. That whole Leppington, Appin area, it's all just land being developed, and there's just so many houses increasing.
And then if you're looking outside of those areas, Newcastle, Hunter area, and also the Illawarra area is a tip to have a lot of growth. For obvious reasons, it's within sort of 2 hours of Sydney, so it is possible for some people to be able to commute if needed. Yeah,
and that's the thing. You can still enter the Maitland market and Cessnock market for $700K.
Exactly.
It's affordable price points.
Oh, well, that's it for today. We'll see you on the next one.
See you on the next one.